So we do have a lot to cover today. I am really keen to get started, and I'm very excited to be able to have UAL on the call today talking about their staff listening experiences. There's a lot to come. There's a lot to get through. We've got a great panel today. Thank you so much for everyone from UAL for joining us. We've got a little bit of an introduction from myself. Hello, lots of people joining. Welcome. Just going through the agenda in terms of saying we have, I'm going to give a very quick introduction and welcome from myself and for People Insight. I'm then going to hand over to UAL to talk about their staff surveys. Lots to talk about, lots for them to share. So I think you'll find it incredibly useful. We have got a Q&A session after the session. The first 35 minutes from UAL. So if you do have any questions that pop in to mind as we're going through, please do pop them in the chat. We have got some questions that we've already got to, so we do have a little bit of time for those questions if you have anything to check in or ask us around. And then we've got some updates, which I'm really delighted to be able to share with you, and a bit of a wrap up at the end too. So hopefully everyone's excited to be able to join us today and to hear from UAL. So just to say, we've got some post-webinar resources available. We've got some links at the end. So if you wanted to get some links, some other videos, webinars, we've got them links ready for you. It's really important for us at People Insight to be able to hear from you, to listen. That's what we do day in, day out. So to listen to our clients. So we very much value your feedback. So anything good, bad, ugly, in between, please let us know. Please email, message me. Always happy to listen and to respond. We do have the option, if there was something in particular that you wanted to talk through, or just generally, where you can ask a consultant, come through to us if you did have anything specific that you wanted to talk through, and I'll share that link with you at the end too. But just to get started, it would be great to ask and to get our heads thinking. And if you had a magic wand, what one thing would you implement within your organisation to impact staff listening? So anything at all that you think may be useful to support you to have that impact with staff listening. If there's any thoughts, what you might like, ideal world, please pop it in the chat. Have a think. Anyone brave enough to put anything in? Have a think. Maybe pop it in as we're going through. So anything in particular that you think you would want to implement within your organisation to impact staff listening. Thanks, Margaret. Yep, that's a good one. Helping, and we hear that a lot, helping staff in estates and facilities feel we care about them. Yep. The manager side, absolutely. Yep. In terms of People Insight, our mission is to be the most actionable employee experience platform powered by people. We've got great people, our platform, and action side of things. In terms of the platform, it's very scalable. So we have lots of universities who give access to their managers, lots of functionality in terms of action planning, being able to view comments, and being able to filter the results and look at the results in different ways. We're really proud of our dashboard. We keep updating it. I'm going to share some updates with you later. And it's very, very intuitive, as I'm sure many of you know who are using the platform. We also here at People Insight love our people, and we very much feel that we have a fantastic team who are able to service the university sector. We have our lovely Anya working in the client services team, one of our project managers, looking after our clients right from the beginning of their programme all the way throughout the whole life cycle. We've got our fabulous consultants, our employee experience consultants, supporting with things like questionnaire design, presentation, and we do have a communication team as well in terms of being able to support with things like videos and infographics and posters. We very much feel that the action side of things is incredibly important for staff listening. So making sure that something is happening post-survey. We continue to improve in this space, sharing best practice where we see it. It's great to see many of our universities talking about their action side of things. So one of our webinars recently, we had King's talking about all their actions within their dashboard. And it continues to be a journey, as for everyone, in terms of action planning and helping managers with action planning too. We work with lots of universities in the sector itself, now working with just over 70 universities on their wide range of staff listening. That brings lots of benefits in terms of being able to provide really strong and robust benchmarks, looking at benchmarks for different groups, and being able to share best practice as we see it coming through. The benchmark is constantly updated because we always have surveys happening and rolling into our benchmark. And having such a vast amount of universities that we work with, we're really able to help in terms of creating a HE community. So working together in terms of learning, growing, developing together. We've got lots of exciting tech developments as well. So we've got some change management surveys that have gone into the platform. We'd be happy to talk to you about that. Our bespoke HEI 360 feedback tool that Anya's on the call and we'll mention later on. Our life cycle dashboard, and hot off the press, we've just had our AI analysis on the reporting dashboard prototype coming through. So you can see a little picture of it there, where we can use AI now to sort of do different analysis summaries of insights from the comments from the data too. So we're very excited to be able to launch that soon to you. We've also got lots of case studies, best practice that you're able to access. And our next webinar, we're going to have a little break over summer, will be the 3rd of October, where we've got Manchester Metropolitan University talking, and I'm able to share that they are one of our Outstanding Workplace winners for this year. So they're going to be talking all about that in October. So I'm going to very swiftly move on to UAL to talk about their staff surveys.
Hi, thank you. Hello, everybody. So I'm Leonie Saywell. I'm the Associate Director of the Culture Hub, where the survey work sits at UAL, and I'm joined today by my colleagues, Eleanor, Hannah, and Julia. So next slide, please. So we are going to tell you just a little bit of context setting, who we are, we're going to tell you about our survey, what we did, what we learned, and then we've got some case studies. So next slide. And the slide after that, great. So you probably heard of some of our colleges, but you might not realise all of the colleges that are in our UAL family. We are ranked 2nd in the world for our creative education, and we are 6 colleges, 3 institutes and 4 research centres. So that makes it incredibly exciting and vibrant to work here. But it also means we're delivering a survey and doing action planning across all of these different cultures, which provides us with some challenges. So next slide. I guess you call us a medium-sized organisation, almost 6,000 members of staff, the vast majority of whom are academics. And the next slide, we have got some, you'll definitely recognise these faces. So Grayson Perry, artist, writer and broadcaster, was our Chancellor from 2015 until 2023, and I absolutely guarantee is like the best dressed chancellor anywhere ever. And we have just appointed Clive Myrie as our new chancellor, and you may have, if you're a Desert Island Discs fan, you might have heard of him on Desert Island Discs a couple of weeks ago. If not, I really recommend it. It's a really powerful desert island disc. And next slide, and just our final bit of context setting. So our alumni is making a big difference as artists, musicians, actors, designers, and also activists as well, contributing significantly to the UK economy and the UK's creative reputation. Now, you've probably all heard of Stella McCartney being a graduate of CSM, but maybe you're less familiar with some of our other fantastic alumni. So we have got MIA, a British rapper who went to Central St Martin's and studied fine art. Ana Maria Maialino, who is a Brazilian artist and activist. She did a PhD at Chelsea. Chris Feely, who did a BA in Fine Arts from Chelsea. And if you've been to Tate Britain recently, you will have seen his wonderful Requiem mural for the victims of Grenfell. Kim Jones, who studied photography at Camberwell, is now creative director at Dior Menswear. And Alex Weck, who studied fashion business at London College of Fashion and, of course, is a model and designer. So that's it from me in terms of context setting. I am now going to hand over to Hannah.
Thanks, Leonie. Brilliant, thank you. Morning, everybody. Oh, it's afternoon now, isn't it? Afternoon, everyone. My name's Hannah Marsh. I'm one of the HR project managers and worked with Eleanor and Leonie on the staff survey. So I'm just going to talk to you about setting the scene in terms of our survey journey. So if we go to the next slide, thank you. Okay, so before we partnered with People Insight and we did some full surveys, we had some pulse surveys in 2020 and 21. These were internally run and really just reacting to the COVID-19 pandemic. So a real focus on wellbeing and touching base with staff through that period. So as you can see, really low response rates, so from 15% up to 18.7%. So we had a total of kind of just over 4.5 staff members at the time, and around 800 kind of completed the survey. These were ran, as I say, internally by our planning teams and on just a local platform, JISC, and we had some internal dashboards which, to be honest, probably weren't very accessible and people didn't know where to kind of find them or access the information. But in 2022, we partnered with People Insight after a competitive procurement process. So People Insight stood out to us for a number of reasons, but just to highlight a couple of them, was the ability to benchmark against other higher education institutions and just their expertise in the sector in relation to employee engagement, but also the Eden Reforestation Project, which really aligned to our social purpose, ambitions, and our strategy. So we'll speak through those results in a bit more detail in a moment, but you can really see the difference there. Obviously, moving on to the 23 survey, moving all the way from a 15% response rate up to a 55% response rate in 23. So massive improvement in engagement, massive improvement in just people hearing from staff, and that's kind of all on the back of working with People Insight. So thank you very much. If you move on to the next slide. Okay, so we just wanted to highlight some of the changes that were implemented for 2022 when we did run our first full survey. So apart from obviously partnering with People Insight, we had a dedicated comms campaign, having internal comms work with us on the campaign and on the working group was a real benefit, so we could really target different areas of the university and staff groups, and just make sure we reached everyone. As you have seen from our demographics, we are all over the place, so it was really good to make sure that we reached everyone. So on the back of the survey, we planted 2,533 trees, so real positive reaction to that. We were really pleased with that, so fantastic. It was really important that we had senior leadership buy-in. So our VC had actually joined not long before we procured the survey, and he had been personally involved all the way from kind of procurement all the way through to launch. He felt it was an essential activity to measure employee engagement and just a real opportunity to hear from staff. So that was really good, and that kind of fed down from the top. On the back of the survey, we developed a UAL-wide action plan, so making sure that we were keeping staff engaged with the results as part of the planning tool and the post-survey activity was just really, really key. We provided staff with FAQs, an infographic, summary report, just to encourage that action planning after the survey. And some of the results there, just as a bit of a snippet on the slide for you. But have to say, massive learning point for us was actually getting the action planning communicated to staff. So there was so much activity happening after the survey locally and kind of at top level, but we were a bit slow on communicating that. So that was a real learning point for us in the 22 survey. But it did allow us to benchmark against higher education, but not only just in the sector and within London, but also to inform us about our KPIs for the 23 survey. I think it's really important to note that this was our first full survey since 2017, so everything we were doing was new. We were really learning as we went along. And what worked, what didn't. We had an unofficial target for response rate around 60%, which I think was the sector benchmark at the time. This was just too ambitious for us at our first survey. I quickly learned a lot about our staff groups and informed us again about the next kind of KPIs and setting them. We also moved at real pace. I think Anya can testify to this. So from procuring people insight to launching the survey, we did this incredibly quickly, needed more lead-in time. So again, just another real lesson learned. But have to say, massive shout out to the people insight team, because we did go from an 18.7% response rate to 41%. So a significant increase there. So thank you to them, really. Okay, so the next slide, thank you. Lovely, thank you. So I'm just going to talk you through the 23 survey, so some key points and key lessons for us. So thank you. Next slide. Brilliant. Oh, sorry, apologies. I'm going to hand over to Eleanor. Eleanor's going to talk you through this.
That's all right. Thank you, Hannah. Morning, everyone, or afternoon, sorry. I'm Eleanor, and I also work for the organisational development team at UAL. So when we were thinking about our ambitions for the 2023 survey, we were really lucky because we had so much to learn from 2022. Going into 23, we felt much more confident in our approach, and ahead of the survey, we dedicated some time to deciding our ambitions so we could tackle some specific issues. Since our 2022 survey, the people strategy had been released, and there were key deliverables around the staff survey to aim for. So these were essential and realistic goals that were based on our results. We began to start thinking about the survey in August, organising the working group, meeting regularly with Jane and Anya and the rest of the team at People Insight. This longer lead-in time allowed us to involve the right people and invest the right time and resources into achieving our goals. So, for example, we had a dedicated OD consultant, which was me, to cover the survey period and the post-survey activity. We also had a thorough comms campaign, which we'll talk through in a moment, and we communicated to our key stakeholders about developing their local action plans. One of the main focuses to raise the overall response rate and engagement rates was to increase our academic and HPL, that's hourly paid lecturers' response rates, and keep the questions the same as 2022 so we can compare our results accurately. Keeping the question set the same allowed us to move faster, and it removes a lot of the sign-off process, but it provides a flexibility for us to amend in the future if needed. It also importantly allows us to benchmark and measure against our progress from 2022. So next slide, please. The branding and comms campaign was particularly strong in 2023. You might notice that Hannah and I have a matching background that's also on this slide. We picked an image from a UAL graduate just so that we could add that to our team's backgrounds, the footer of our emails, and really get through a key image for the survey. So we worked really closely with our internal comms team colleagues to embed the staff survey, and the collective expertise of People Insight and our comms team meant that staff knew about the survey ahead of the launch and was the forefront throughout the live period, and probably the this was one of our main contributors to exceeding our target for the response rate. To attract the academic population to the survey, we also changed our donation. For each survey that was completed, we donated £2 to the Student Hardship Fund, which we thought would be a closer cause aligned to our social purpose. As many of our HPL staff work across other institutions, they may not always check their email at UAL, so we also sent out letters to complete the survey, and to our hourly paid staff. Those letters were to our hourly paid staff and those on long-term sickness leave, meaning that everybody had the opportunity to contribute. We saw a 6% increase in our HPL response rate from 2022, so we see this as a real success. And some examples of what the Student Hardship Fund contributes to are things like emergency accommodation for students who are becoming homeless, funding for students who need financial support that has been impacted by conflict or economic upheaval in their home country. Also new to 2023 was the introduction of a QR code, again for staff who might not have a laptop on them or are just moving around the university, so that they could complete it on the go. The survey was open from the 3rd of November to the 8th of December, and within this time we shared live response rates with teams to create friendly competition. This was particularly fun. I remember this period quite fondly because it led to some departments like our social purpose department achieving 100% response rate, which me from the people department I am incredibly jealous of, but hopefully we've still got this year. Our CPO, Naina Patel, also provided weekly updates on response rates at the executive board. So again, creating that competition. And this really drove engagement in our leadership teams too, because no one really wanted to have the lowest response rate. The comms campaign also included a video from our Chief People Officer, and before the survey opened, so this highlighted previous areas of change and updates on actions and the importance of giving feedback. Whilst the survey was open, our President and Vice Chancellor also promoted it in our all-staff briefing and took questions from staff on the survey. All staff comms included emails to line managers, we posted on Canvas, and we also promoted it in local newsletters. Next slide, please, just to see a breakdown of those response rates. So we achieved a 55% response rate, which we were extremely pleased with. This is a 14% increase from 2022. And we also scored a 71% engagement rate, which is the same as our engagement rate in 2022, which again, we're really proud of given the increase in response rate. We shared our results in a similar way to the previous year. So we dedicated a page on Canvas, which is our staff intranet. And we had FAQs, a summary report, and a video infographic that highlighted the top line results from the survey. Importantly, we increased and met the target in each academic area across the university. And next slide, on to you, Hannah.
Thanks, Eleanor. Okay, so great success on the 23 survey, but obviously we did learn a lot from that survey. So just talk you through them a little bit. So as we said already about action planning, we had feedback that we should just be getting those actions out much sooner. So we were on a bit of a mission to get those actions out in early 2024. So we did. So it communicated to staff, and so that information could be cascaded down to all local teams. So as mentioned, we kept the questions the same for 2023 to obviously use the benchmarking data, but we are considering just making some small tweaks for the third survey. So for example, there aren't many questions around facilities or the working environment, which we might want to include for 24, particularly because we've had a lot of movement in terms of buildings and locations with our campuses. So the free text questions have suggested themes, as some of you probably already know. These were particularly UAL focused. So the best thing about working at UAL doesn't actually include students at the moment. So we definitely need to get that in there. But next year we will be using the AI comment tool, which People Insight will be providing. So that will definitely take care of that one. local lessons to be learned. So, for example, our London College of Fashion had just moved location to East Bank, and there were some challenges there around the reaching the population in terms of the comms campaign, and just the upheaval of moving location. So things like that in terms of obstacles we just need to be a bit more aware of going into the 24 survey. So that'll be good. The Student Hardship Fund, so really fantastic amount to give towards the students, and Eleanor spoke to some of the donations earlier, but there was a bit of a mixed response in terms of where the money was coming from and what kind of budget pot that was coming from. So again, it's just a lesson learned in terms of transparency, making sure that we're making that really clear as part of our comms campaign. And then due to structural changes in the organisation, there were some issues around establishment models. So basically where staff sit within the colleges or their departments. This meant quite a few last minute changes with our HR systems teams and working with our HR BPs, and that could have potentially delayed the start of the survey. But now we're aware of this, we're working with our BPs and our colleagues much earlier to make sure that doesn't happen again. So something we did differently this time around, though, was offer our executive board one-to-one coaching sessions with Kate from People Insight, just allowing them to scrutinise the detail from their areas. This really helped put the emphasis on the leadership teams to drive the change and the action planning within their respective areas, and ultimately work with their senior leadership teams to make sure that those action planning questions are happening at local level. And we also increased the number of dashboard users. So again, just making sure that the right people had access to the dashboard, could access the results. That was definitely on the feedback from the 2020 survey. So some lessons learned there to move into the 24. Thank you. Next slide. So this just gives you a bit of an idea of our timeline. So we had, as we mentioned about the lead-in time, we had a much better lead-in time this time around, and allowed us to kind of cascade that information. So we convened the working group in September. We started the comms campaign in October before the survey even went launched to make people aware that it was coming. And as Eleanor mentioned, just those re-emphasising the actions on back of the 22 survey. We launched the survey in November, and through while the survey was open, did continual reminders of to complete the survey, but also just to see how people are doing. So make sure that friendly competition was happening at the local levels. Closed the survey in December, but by January we had the oval presentation for the senior leadership teams, all the local leadership teams as well, and the colleges and directorates. In February, all the dashboard results were shared to the local areas, and we released comms around that. And then we also held some dashboard and key stakeholder post-survey workshops, really useful, just as a refresher to how to use the dashboard, but also just again driving home the importance of keeping the survey alive in everyone's minds, and that one-to-one coaching with our executive team that I spoke about. And now we're in the process of discussing those local action plans and getting ready for the next survey. So thank you. The next slide.
Hannah, I just wanted to say how, it's great to see that movement and how quick we've moved in terms of the local level action planning from the previous survey. And I know that other universities do struggle with that in terms of just not from any fault of their own. It's just the system, getting approval, making sure it's going to the right group. So it was great that we had the plan initially, that was what was going to happen. So if you think, within 6 to 8 weeks, that the results were going locally, which was a much bigger movement. So that was great work and planning from your side. Thank you for that.
Thank you. Yeah, definitely. As I say, we're on a bit of a mission to get that all out much earlier. Okay, so just to talk to you about the post-survey activity then, if you go to the next slide. Brilliant. Okay. So as we've mentioned, and as James just mentioned, it's really, really important that we had to get that executive board on side in terms of ownership for their local actions and cascading that information, as well as us being responsible for sharing that information with all the different staff groups. So these were the areas that, so following the results, these were the areas that decided to be of focus. Some of them are continuing from the 22 survey. And then we've got a couple of updated and new ones there. And that really did kind of focus on our lowest scoring questions, and just where the existing work was already happening. It's really key, I mentioned it before, but we really did up the number of dashboard users, so we can really put onus on people to make sure that within these areas the actions are being implemented, and we can track that on the dashboard just to make sure we've got that increased engagement. Okay, I think I'm handing over to Eleanor. Thank you.
Thank you, Hannah. So as part of the plan to support action planning across the university, we also designed deep dive analyses for particular topics or demographics. These consisted of PowerPoint presentations that summarised the group or topic and then explored any potential intersectionality data to help us understand results better. So these included career development, EDI, learning and development, line management, workload, well-being, technicians, and parents and carers. And disability, as well. These presentations help to drive senior and local engagement in our survey results, and they also inform action planning groups of particular areas of interest. A good example of this would be that the EDI presentation highlighted how respondents that declared a disability in 2023 fall behind the average university scores by 11%. From this presentation, we created a separate deep dive on disability to understand the data better. Our intersectionality analysis allowed us to identify demographics like college and function, where disabled respondents' scores were particularly low. And these have now resulted in a drive to improve workplace adjustments at both a local and a UAL-wide level. So they've been really important and key to our action planning and understanding the data. And move on to the next slide, please. So local action planning. This year, as Hannah's mentioned, we had 122 users across UAL, and now at the moment we've only got 6% of dashboard users that have logged an action. However, I will say that doesn't mean that action planning isn't taking place. It's just more about the encouragement of using the dashboard. So 12% of our actions that have been logged have now been completed, 61% are in progress, and 27% not started. These actions are only the ones that have been logged against a schedule, and across all actions, 88% have no date or no time set. So again, we really need to encourage people to use the tool. I get emails. I know that there's lots of local action planning happening, but this is absolutely something that's a lesson learned from this year that we'll be putting into our plans for the 2024 survey. It's still something that we're learning to manage, and we're finding that many local actions are in place, and senior leadership teams are including surveys in their regular meetings. But again, it's about getting leaders to engage with the dashboard and log them. This is also where the relationship with our HRBPs is really important. That's our HR business partners, and it's something that we continue to work on. So we send monthly reports of the action planning to our business partners to see where those actions are being logged. Thank you. Next slide, please. And Hannah, it's over to you.
Me again. Thank you. So we just wanted to share a couple of case studies where we've seen real success, and some, really good practice. So I'm going to just talk through the people team, and then Julia is going to join from our CSM, our college CSM. So if you could go to the next slide, thank you. Okay, so I'm just going to talk through the people department. Real success in terms of increase in all the themes compared to 22. I don't know if you can see the little greens on the screen there, so there's lots of pluses, lots of greens, so we really saw a fantastic response since 2022 in our people team. And I think obviously partly, down to that, we set up a working group in the people team, and it consists of someone from each team across the department. We reviewed our lowest scoring scores. We've consulted with every single team to gain feedback and ideas on how to improve their employee experience. As a working group, so Eleanor and I are on that working group. We each lead themes as such. So the themes that we currently have are around comms and collaboration, ways of working, the link to the students, and career and progression. So one of the ideas that came out of working with our teams across the department was Focus Friday. So this is where, as a people team, we've committed to having a dedicated head down time. No meetings are scheduled on the Friday afternoon, within reason. So that really has enabled people to kind of focus on clearing their inbox, self-development, and just making sure that kind of reduction in meeting fatigue, reduction in stress. So we've seen some real key benefits from that, and we will be continuing that for the next 6 months. So that's a real positive to come out of kind of the people working group. So the focus on specific areas and just the combined efforts of all the volunteers across the departments has meant that we've seen a considerable increase in the belief in action. So as you can see here, we were plus 25 on the previous survey there, and the survey overall, and plus 19 on the 22 results. So which is one of the hardest, I think, questions to kind of shift, is that belief in action. So really, really pleased to see that there. And embed good practice across the department. Okay, so I think I'm handing over to Julia now. She appears as if by magic. There we go. Hi, Julia.
Hello. Hello, everyone. Hi. So I could have the next slide, please. So just to introduce myself, I'm Julia Dawson. I'm the Director of College Administration for Central St Martin's. Most universities, that's called a Director of Operations role, but essentially I'm responsible for the management and operation of the college. So I recently joined when the staff survey results had come out, and I was asked to present to our all staff, which is a meeting our head of college holds once a term, and to give people the headlines of the response, and to talk to them about what an action plan might look like. I'm perhaps a little bit of a maverick by nature, so I started with the belief our response rate was very low. You would have noticed on one of those earlier slides, we're one of the worst performing areas of the university in that sense. So I sort of said to people, the belief in action here is really low. Why is that? So I went through a few themes, and then I asked them, and people did engage actually. And what they said was, we feel that past staff survey action plans have been done to us. So I said, right, would you like to come and join a working group? Will people please get in touch with me? It'd be great to have representatives from all of our job groups. And can we work together on doing this? So rather than it being management led, let's make it college led. I was a little bit nervous, having put this provocation out there as to whether anyone would respond or not. But within the next 2 or 3 days, I had emails from people from every single one of our job families offering to be part of this group. I made it clear that the time commitment was limited, so they didn't have to come to endless meetings, which I think people were a bit worried about. And I also talked about what their responsibility would be in terms of feeding back to colleagues in their areas. So we pulled off, our HRBP was fantastic. He set up a Teams site and pulled off all of our data. And we had our first meeting, and we talked about how we were going to work together on making this real, and how we could take it back to each of those all staff meetings to tell people not only what we'd been planning, but actually also what we'd done. So I thought it was really important that we demonstrated quite quickly and that we actually were taking actions and working on it in order to build that trust and hopefully get, sort of increase engagement for future surveys as well. So what we agreed in the end was that we would have 3 categories of actions, which were things we could resolve locally ourselves, things that we could work with colleagues across university, especially HR, but others too on, and then things that were actually sector issues, which we would flag as important to us, and try and feedback on those to senior staff who are out in sector events. We spent a lot of time talking about pay and recognition, which probably isn't a surprise to anybody on this call, but I wanted to kind of contain that in a what can we do about local recognition, but then how can we also make the staff feel heard, so that we've talked about, the people who are involved with UCEA, for instance, in the pay negotiations. How can we make sure that we've also fed up that that's an important issue to our staff? So we had our 3 layers. And then we had our own themes. We had 3 themes that we chose, and you see them here: communication, engagement, staff development, and reward and recognition. And then we had some actions under those for each job family. So for us, that's academic, it's also technical, and then it's for management and administration. We also are in a slightly funny position in the sense that we've got colleagues who work within our college, but whose results would have been in another section of the university survey because they're matrix managed through central professional services. A couple of people said to me, can I still be involved? And I said, well, of course, absolutely. The data is the first step, but this is about how we work together as a college community and not drawing barriers, but actually really trying to work together. And those colleagues actually brought the survey results from their areas and said these are things that also came up, and we tried to kind of compare across as best we could in order to make sure that we were, particularly because those were professional services roles, just make sure we're capturing what had been fed back through another stream, really. So that was the process. It's gone quite well. I've been back to the all staff and presented. I've also asked other people to present, so doesn't just feel like me. I took the action plan to our college executive group to make sure that all of the senior leaders within the college had overview of what was happening. So that's been really positive, and positive endorsement from them. But what's really been great is the fact that when I'm wandering around in the canteen, someone will come and talk to me about it. And it feels that we're starting to embed this way of working into our culture. Obviously, it's a work in progress, and we need to make sure that we're following through on all the things we've committed to. But it feels that people feel that it's worth responding to the survey and that they are being heard. So I've really enjoyed working in this way. Obviously, I could have sat in my office and put together an action plan on my own, but actually it's been brilliant to have that involvement of colleagues. And I really hope OD colleagues that next time round will get a better response rate at CSM because of the work, or because we've worked in this way. So let's see. But that's where we are at the moment.
Thanks,
Lovely.
Julia.
Thank you.
It's great to hear. It's great to hear that local perspective and what you've been doing with looking at the results and them conversations that you've been having afterwards. And I love the 3 layers as well that you talked about. That's great to hear. Thank you. Let's see. Fingers crossed. Hopefully the work will have paid off for the next survey. So we're moving on to the questions section now. So if you've got any questions to ask that popped in, I'll have a quick check of the chat in a few minutes. And if you've got anything, please pop it in to ask. I know we've had a couple of questions that have already been submitted when people registered, so I'll maybe move on to that. And if you've got anything, pop it in the chat. So the first one that came through was about looking at difficult to reach groups and how to increase participation in the survey and ensure their experience is reflected in the results. So I don't know if anyone from UAL has got any thoughts on that. I think Julia spoke to some of this as well earlier.
Hannah, do you want
Shall I take that one?
Yeah.
Yeah, brilliant. So thank you. That's a really good question, actually, and something we've definitely had experience with in terms of reaching all the different staff groups. So I think the example we spoke to earlier about our academic and our hourly paid lecturer community, using the different approach of actually writing to them outside of kind of their work email to make sure that they still had a voice and they could still take part even though they might not have been on site at that particular time was a really important step. And likewise with those staff that perhaps weren't in the business at the time, so on long-term leave or kind of parental leave or something like that. So that was a really good initiative that we worked with with Daniel on. I think the Student Hardship Fund really resonated with our staff groups. As we said, most of our staff base are academic, and again, they're the ones front facing with our students. So it really had a positive effect on affecting our students. So that was a really positive response to that, and really having champions within the local areas to champion the survey, and that friendly competition really helped as well, kind of keeping people up to date with the response rates. I think it was great, obviously, like Julia mentioned, having that senior leadership as well, driving it home and making sure that they were interested every week on what the response rate was, making sure everyone had responded and everyone had access to it, and just that recognition that, you know, the different job families are going to have a different employee experience, and so that needs to be reflected in the action plans. You know, what we've done in the people team is very different to maybe what they've done in the CSM, but it's positively impacting both staff groups. And something else that's really important as well is our trade union colleagues, and making sure that we're keeping them up to date with kind of progress of the survey, the action plans, and just getting their input so they can kind of share best practice as well, and share it with their reps. Hopefully, I don't know if any of my colleagues want to build upon that.
That's great. Thank you for that, Hannah. Another question that's come in is any tips on that quicker post-survey side of things? So how did you go about changing it from 22 to 23 to get results out quickly? What steps did you need to put in place for that?
Leonie, did you want to take that one?
Yeah. Well, we planned it in advance with people inside, and really went for full share of the results with our executive board as quickly as we could. And our vice chancellor was also really keen that following that the results were shared with all of our senior leaders. And you know, it was such a lesson learned from the year before, as Hannah explained as well, that we just hadn't got there quickly enough on the survey action planning. So that really drove a desire to get this done really quickly. So I think the results were first shared in January, and by February we were back at executive board with our overall UAL wide plan as well. And again, just learning from people insight as well. You know, that advice that comes loud and clear on the back of everybody's survey results. It's better to have 3 deliverable strong actions than a dozen that are going to kind of not be delivered. So that also drove a lot of what we're going to be, you know, what are the top actions. We didn't quite manage to get just 3 because there were other things that were rolling over from the other year, but it certainly kept us very focused. And yeah, I mean, there's more lessons for us to be learned this year about that faster sort of action out in the colleges and other departments. But it's really great that Julia's come in as well with lots of insight there too.
Great, thank you for that. Thanks, Leonie. And final one, just to ask you at UAL, is around how can we connect the staff survey with the overall university strategy?
That's an excellent question, and something that we had to think a lot about, because the strategy question is actually probably one of our lowest scoring. So it's been on the action plan from kind of 2022, but fortunately, as a university, we've launched 2 new pieces of work kind of recently. So one is our new appraisal framework, which directly links to our 10-year strategy at UAL and local plans. And as part of one of our conversations as part of the framework is around objective setting and that link to strategy. So there's a real emphasis there that, you know, everyone will be having these appraisal conversations, so everyone will be aware of the local plans, and hopefully that, you know, that recognition of how it all comes together and how it all contributes to the bigger picture will be really evident. And the second thing that we've done is our planning and strategy team excuse me, have come in this year as well, and they've kind of just changed the process and the way we do our planning and budget process for the year. So every single area of the university, which I'm sure Julia and Leonie are on top of, have had to do operational plans for their local areas, and these have been cascaded through the teams and shared across the university. So again, that link with the appraisal, but everyone will be aware of what objectives have been set for their particular departments or colleges. and it just will give them that clarity around how their work and their objectives really contributes to the strategy. So we're really hoping actually 24, 25, we're going to see a really big shift in that question. Leonie and Julie, I don't know if there's anything you want to add to that in terms of the planning.
Nope.
Thank
Not
you.
really.
Thanks. And the final question is one that we get asked quite a few times, is around how can we demonstrate impact and action taken on the results? How can we keep the survey alive in between the momentum? And we see lots of good practice around demonstrating impact, and I don't think there's a one response on this. There's a number of things in terms of making sure that there's really clear actions quickly that are communicated, so it's not hidden, and it's not shared, so it's shared to all staff what the overall actions are, how local action planning is going to happen, what level, who's the owner, who's got that role, who's supporting the role locally, and what that looks like. So like Julia's talked about, that local level, making sure that them conversations are happening, which will be different as discussed within the different teams, but there's a real commitment, and the behaviours are showing that there's discussion around what next. So the survey has told us this, we've got this piece of evidence, what does that mean for us? What can we do to help that? And then the discussion will come in terms of actions, things that we can change, we can see if it's going to work, like particular initiatives, and making sure that those actions, initiatives, conversations are shared with staff, so that communication piece, the staff know actually there's a working group, there's things happening here, and linking to being really clear with, as a result of listening, this is what we're saying, as a result of the evidence that's come through, this is what we're trialing at the moment. So being really clear and making them connections really tight, so people are looking, oh, the survey is doing something. We've also seen from some other universities as well, where at regular intervals and with yourselves, they'll go to the exec with the update of what's happening, but also put together a bit of a booklet sharing, this is what we're doing at these faculty schools, and then sharing that with all staff. So 3-6 months after, so there's that evidence again of being shared, communicated with staff to keep that momentum going. It does take a while with action planning. It's not, a really quick fix, but it's the next stage of action planning. If anyone's got any other thoughts on the impact and what they have seen, either drop us a note now or let us know. I'm always keen to share in terms of looking at what impact and keeping that momentum going. Okay, we've got a few minutes left in terms of the session. I wanted to just hand over to Anya to talk a little bit about our new 360 offering.
Thank you. And before I go into 360, it's been a pleasure working with UAL over the last couple of years. Really looking forward to the next round. So well done on all your results. Yes, we thought we'd take this opportunity just to reach out to you on this webinar to talk about our 360 offer. So some of you may not be aware, but People Insight do some lovely 360 work as well, which complements some of the employee experience work on the survey. So recently our consultants have put together a specific 360 framework for the HE sector. So statements that are really relevant for you, with themes that we've really thought about, and with all our experience within your sector, put this together for you specifically. We've got a few people using it already, a few organisations using it already, and would be really happy to demo this and to talk to you about this in more detail. So do reach out to any of us at People Insight. Everyone, as you know, is super approachable and happy to help at People Insight. So get in contact, and we're happy to put in a quick call to talk to you about it and show you around our lovely platform, which has some lovely new functionality on there as well. So nice looking dashboard for 360 results, and also for program management as well. So that's important to bring it all together. Look forward to talking to some of you about our 360.
Thanks, Anya. Thank you. And we've got various reports and webinars and resources, as I mentioned earlier. So we've got some QR codes, which obviously we'll share the slides with you afterwards. So if you did want to link to anything, obviously we'll be recording this as well. If you want to play anything back on demand. We also have our HEI Big Question survey. So I know we will be sending this out pretty shortly, actually, to our clients, where we're just inviting you to a short survey to get some evidence, to get some insights on your thoughts, and looking at the value of staff listening, life cycle, the 2030 workplace. So we're really keen for people to take part, because this is giving us information at this point in time on where people are feeling. We will be planting a tree for the Eden reforestation for every survey completed, as you can imagine, and we'll be sharing the results as well. So we'll make sure that we share this link with you, so please do take part, and you can also do the QR code there as well if you're scanning this or want to scan it later. We've got the option with talking to us, so we've got please reach out. As Anya said, we're all pretty approachable and happy to talk and to just speak to you about anything in particular, anything specific that you want to catch up on or just ask around. Obviously, we've got a huge amount of experience, and you know, we're happy to share what we see as good practice. To say thank you for taking part. We are going to be planting some trees, so thank you so much. We love being able to plant the trees for Eden Reforestation, so we're planting 200 trees as a result of your time. It really is amazing to have you talking today, and I know it's a lot of effort in the background to put things together, and we very much appreciate just having that time to reflect actually on your programme, where you've been, where you are now, where we're going with it. So thank you so much. It's an incredible journey that you've been on, continue to be on, and thank you for sharing today with us.